Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling the ancient practice of fasting and asking a question a lot of us have probably thought: why do the modern rules for it feel, well, kind of easy? We're going to dig into that gap between just checking a box and finding some real spiritual strength.
All right, let's jump right into the big question here, the one that kind of gets at the heart of the problem for a lot of us.
So here's the thing. If your big sacrifice for the day looks exactly like, well, a normal Tuesday, is it really a sacrifice? It's a totally fair question, right? I mean, the official rule in the Catholic tradition is one main meal and two smaller ones. But for a lot of us today, especially with things like intermittent fasting being so popular, that's just how we eat. So what gives? If it doesn't feel like you're giving anything up, are you? Well, when we get stuck just focusing on the literal rules, the letter of the law, and completely miss the why behind it, that's a classic trap. Theologians call it legalism. It's basically just checking the box. But here's the really interesting part. The fact that the rule feels so easy for us isn't an accident. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's actually a clue that tells us a much bigger story. So, to get what's really going on, we have to do a little time traveling. We need to see the world these rules were actually made for. See, this rule, it wasn't written for you and me sitting at a desk clicking a mouse. No way. It was designed for a world of intense, backbreaking manual labor. Think about it. The number of calories a farmer burns in a day versus what someone in an office burns, it's not even in the same ballpark. The context is everything. You have to understand, historically, fasts were brutal. We're talking bread and water, if you were lucky. So the church, trying to be what it calls a merciful mother, basically created a laborer's exemption. Those two smaller meals, that was a practical concession. It was put in place so that the people doing hard physical work, farmers, blacksmiths, you name it, wouldn't literally collapse. And that's the key takeaway here. This rule, it was never ever meant to be the ideal. It was a safety net, a baseline. It was designed to make sure that absolutely everyone, no matter their job, could participate without putting their health or their family's livelihood at risk. Okay, this brings us to a really important idea that honestly unlocks this whole thing. Think of it like this. The rule is the floor. It's the universal bare minimum that everyone has to do. It gets you in the building, but there's also a ceiling. And the ceiling, that's the real goal, the thing you can strive for, a place of real spiritual growth. The rule isn't the finish line, it's just the starting block. Here's a great way to think about it, especially if you're a hockey fan. The minimum rule is like a pickup game of shinny hockey on a frozen pond. It's fun, it's casual, and pretty much everyone can play. It gets you on the ice. But nobody, and I mean nobody, confuses a game of shinny with playing in the pros for the Stanley Cup. That's a whole different level of commitment. So that leads to the biggest question of all, right? Why even bother with this? What's the point? And the answer is pretty profound. It has a lot less to do with our own hunger and everything to do with the world around us. I mean, the Bible itself calls this out directly. The prophet Isaiah basically asks, you think this is the kind of fasting I want? A fast that's just about you feeling hungry? No. He's crystal clear. A fast is supposed to be about breaking the chains of injustice, sharing your bread with the hungry. If your fast is disconnected from action, it's just an empty stomach. You're completely missing the point. And this gets to a really critical distinction. For us, fasting is a choice. It's a temporary feeling, a chosen discomfort. And it comes from a place of having more than enough. But real hunger, that's an injustice. It's something forced on millions of people by poverty and broken systems. And that is a completely different moral reality. The whole point of our choice is to use that little bit of discomfort to remember and to build solidarity with all those people who have no choice at all. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we go from playing shinny on the pond to competing in the pro league? The answer is we have to become a spiritual athlete. We have to start aiming for that ceiling instead of just being happy staying on the floor. And if you look through history, it's just full of these spiritual all-stars who show us exactly what's possible. You've got the early monks in the desert who lived on just bread and water, saints like Catherine of Siena who ate almost nothing, or St. Francis of Assisi who would go on these incredibly intense 40-day fasts. These guys were definitely playing in the pro league, showing a level of commitment that makes the minimum rule look like, well, shinny. Because here's the thing, being a spiritual athlete isn't just about what you don't do, like eating less. It's about what you do. The real championship game is won when that feeling of hunger pushes you into action. So take the money you would have spent on lunch and give it away. Volunteer your time at a food bank or with lonely people. Find one chain of injustice in your own community and do something, anything, to help break it.
Now, on a practical level, when that moment of temptation hits, and it will, here are two super simple but powerful things you can do. First, drink a glass of water. Seriously, our bodies are terrible at telling the difference between hunger and thirst. And second, when that hunger pang arrives, don't just ignore it or fight it. Use it. Turn it into a moment for a quick prayer. Something as simple as this, just whispering, "Lord, let this hunger be a prayer for those who have no food today." Wow, that one sentence can totally reframe the entire experience. Suddenly, that discomfort isn't just a personal burden anymore. It becomes an act of love, an act of solidarity. It connects your tiny sacrifice to a huge global reality.
Which brings us right back to the championship game and the choice that's in front of every single one of us.
Look, we've got two options here. On one hand, there's comfortable compliance. We can sit in our desk chair, follow the minimum rule, check the box, and call it a day. Or we can aim for a profound self-offering. We can choose to unite our personal, small sacrifice with real service to other people. We can turn an empty stomach into a fuller, more compassionate heart.
So in the end, that's what it all comes down to. The rules? They're just the invitation to the game. They get you on the ice. The real question isn't, did you follow the rules? The real question is, how are you going to play? Are you content with a casual game of shinny? Or are you ready to play for the championship?